This is environment 2 for the medieval scene, and I'm going to go back over some of the things that I did in my previous video with particles, but I'm also going to do something different as well. You can see that I've got just a white ground right now, and I want to show you something where I can use texture paint to add two textures on here, because I want to have sort of a grassy stone area, and I want to have a little bit of mud as well in there, so I'm going to mix two textures. Just before I do that, just note that I've done a couple of other little things here. I've done a fence here, and I've done a cart with some barrels, and there's another barrel back there. Alright, so that's what I'm going to show you. So I'm going to select the ground and go into the shading tab, and it's just that white plane with a little bit of deformation to it. And I'm going to bring in my first material here. It's going to be this grass and rock. This is not freely available, but you could use anything that you like that's got a number of maps. I'm going to select these four. Those are the typical ones for the principled setup there. However, I don't need the displacement. I'm not going to be using cycles. I'm just going to be using Eevee, so I'm going to get rid of that. And there is an ambient occlusion map with it, so I'm going to add that. So I'm going to Shift D to duplicate it, because that doesn't come in automatically. Press N, change this to say AO, so I can see it right up there. And to connect that, I'm going to add a color, mix RGB along the base color line, and I'm going to drag the ambient occlusion here to the bottom slot, and I'm going to switch this over to multiply. And of course you can mess around with the FAC if you want more or less of this stuff. I'm also going to darken this up a bit using a color gamma. I'm going to drop that in there, and I'm going to switch that to, we'll try 1.2. And just to get it a little sharper, I might up the resolution or the scale here. Let's try 3 by 3. And I think I'm going to go with that for now. Alright, now, so here's what I would have. Okay. That looks great. Of course, I'll put vegetation on, but I want another texture. I want some mud down in this sort of lower area. All right, so I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to come back to the shading tab and set this up. I'm going to press Control plus to maximize this. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to duplicate the principled shader. And I'm going to bring in a mud material, Shift Control T. And this mud is also one that's not freely available, but you could look up on Ambient CG or textures.com. You could look for mud, or you could look for water, something like that. Something that's got a few different maps to it, the typical maps. So I click that, and they come in. So just whatever you want to use, you could try. You can mix really pretty much any materials. It's easier if they all have pretty much the same maps, but it doesn't really matter, because using two different principled shaders, so, or principled BSDFs. So I just want to move these down a bit, because there isn't an ambient occlusion on this one as well. So I'm going to duplicate that and press N. I'll call that AO again, and close that, and then we'll do another mix RGB along this line here, and drag that in here and switch that to multiply. All right, I mean, at this point, nothing has changed, and it won't for a bit. We're going to do something here. We're going to connect this, and so I'm going to use a shader, mix shader, drop that in there, and drag this BSDF, principled BSDF, right to there. Now I need something to draw on, so to do the texture painting. So I'm going to bring in an image texture. We'll create a new one, and we can call this ground texture, like that. I'm going to make this 2048 by 2048, and that's good. And I'm going to plug that into the FAC. Now you still won't see anything, at least not yet. So we'll come back here, and now let's switch over to texture paint. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to click, and you can start to see over here and here a different texture coming in. So let's say around the house in this area, I'm just going to draw some mud. So what you're seeing then is you are seeing the second texture that I used go in there. And you can see a little bit. Let's see if I turn on the lights. All right, I see a little bit of reflection. So I'm going to come in here and just paint some mud underneath here and there. Down in that area. Maybe a little bit coming out here. Now, it's a little hard without the vegetation to know where to put it. So I just really wanted to show you this. So let's go back to layout. And let's zoom in here. All right, so I painted another texture on here. And I can mask the edges a little bit with vegetation if that's what I wanted. So again, you could use whatever textures you want and mix them like that. And if I want, I can go right back to texture painting. If I can find my scene, say okay. I'm going to need a little bit more at the back here. You can press F and change the size of your brush. Let's say you want to paint some more. You know, go around the house, you know, whatever. You can go back in here and you can change this to black, and then you can get rid of it if you don't say, oh, I didn't want it there. All right, so now it's time to put some particles on here. Okay, so I'm just going to shut the lights for now there, that stuff, or hide them. Okay, so in order to put the particles, I want them, I want to be able to control them, and so I'm going to select my main plane and come over here, and I'm going to create a vertex group, which is just going to include this whole area. So let's call this grass new, let's say, which is one of these models I've got here that I created. All right, so I've created a vertex group named for this. I'm going to come over to the particles. The add particle system, you can already see something happening. I'm going to call this grass new. I'll call it there and I'll call it here. Grass new. I'm going to switch over to hair and scale this down to maybe 300. The hair length to maybe 1, just so it's a little bit more manageable. All right, so we'll come down. It's emitting from faces. You can choose faces or vertices. That's fine. Leave all this stuff. That's okay. I will turn on advanced, so that will open up some advanced stuff down here. In a little bit, we'll get to that. But I don't want to render it as a path. I want to render it as an object. And then the object is going to be one of these, I guess, probably this one here. So I'm going to choose that. Right here, I'm going to use the dropper. It's a little bit easier when I have a lot of stuff in the scene. I'm going to choose that. And let's up the scale. Something like this. And you'll notice they're turned funny. That says okay. We can try up here. We could try object rotation. Okay, so that's fine. Now they're sticking into the ground a little bit too much. Let's just see where the origin of this is. So select it, come over to origins. I'm going to press 1 to look from there and zoom in. Yeah, the origin is right there. So I'm going to slide the origin over to about there. And now it should look like they're coming out of the ground a little bit better. All right, now they're scattered right now wherever they want to. Not using any instructions from me, so just turn that off. All right, so we're going to set this up. All right, so back to the particle system. We've got this. We've got that stuff. We can change under the rotation. We can, let's zoom in a bit. We can, in fact, I don't need that selected. We can randomize the rotation. Now, I think I've got to have that on normal. I don't actually want to do that too much. I don't want the phase changing too much. So just there, just like that. Okay. So we randomize that, and scale. Let's randomize the scale. So there are lots of different sizes. And like I say, they're just all over the place. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time painting specifically. We can also turn on interpolated, which will increase the amount. I probably want to have a similar amount on the display and the render, just it's easier for me. I'm just going to choose 5 and 5, and then I'm going to come down to the very bottom and I'm going to choose vertex group for density, sort of how many there are. I'm just going to choose the vertex group I made for that grass new, just like that. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to switch to weight paint, and I want this to be on draw, and I'm going to put my weight up quite high, and I can just do this. Now you can see they're starting to grow. I'm going to back out of that, and I'll have a little bit less weight strength. Now I've got quite a few of them here, and depending on how packed you want your field, I'm going to bring this down to like 150. All right, and then I'm just going to paint here and there, and you can click like this to have little splotches of them, or you can drag. All right, and they're all painting in slightly different rotations and sizes. And I'm going to have a few different plants in here, so we'll have a few different particle systems. So I'll just do whatever. Just do a bunch here and there. I'll come around the back of the house and up on the top of the hill. And of course you can change your brush size, and you can change it along the way. And it's updating as we do this. And it's not slowing my computer down or anything. Say I did that, and then let's say you go, oh, I didn't want them right out in front here. You can switch this over to subtract. Okay, and you can paint them out. So let's say I want a path right there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to object mode, deselect, and there's my plants. All over the place, different sizes, different rotations. So there's one, so that's good. So let's save. Let's add another plant. I'm going to create another vertex group. I'm going to call this grass large. I don't know, I just have strange names for them just because I happen to name them that. So, all right, I'm going to create another particle system. Now you can duplicate if you want and do it that way, but I don't mind just doing it again from scratch. Okay, grass large, we'll do hair. We'll do 150 again, as many as you want really. I'll change the length to 1. And we don't want it as a path, we want it as an object. And the one we're going to use is this one down here. So I'm going to choose that. We're going to, object orientation is the same, advanced, and under rotation, well, we'll see, we'll get to that in a second. We can hide the other one for the moment and see what we get over here. Let's increase the scale. All right, they're starting to come out. Let's increase the scale. Let's do the scale random. And they're standing up right now, so that's good. But let's see what we're going to need to do under this rotation. I think we're going to need to switch to normal. And I can rotate them. So a little bit of this, a little bit of tilting is okay. And all right, let's say that's good. So we're going to go ahead and paint those in now. Or you can just populate it, the way you want. You can just, let's do interpolated as well, by the way. And let's go, 5 and 5 or whatever. You can just let it be, and you can just increase the number, and it's going to look probably very, very cool, like a forest, whatever. Make it 300. And then you bring back the other one, and then, they just all mix together. But the whole idea here is for me to draw it. So I'm going to do that. So we're going to choose the vertex group down here. Density, choose grass large this time. They happen to disappear, which sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Let's go to weight paint, switch over to draw, and now you're adding those in. Now maybe I don't want that many. I'll just tap these in here and there. We can go back and get rid of some. I'll try to leave this area a little bit clean there. So I'm just tapping and sometimes dragging. There we go. Let's check that out. So there they are. And then you can still, of course, go back in here and change the number of these. If you want more, change the scale, the rotation, all that stuff. Let's say I want a bit more variety and I want the bigger. So it's starting to look like a nice populated thing in there. All right, we could keep going with these. I would just make another, I'll use my glowing one. I'll do one more. All right, I'm going to call this grass glow. Another vertex group, another particle system. Grass glow. Grass glow. We'll do hair. This one I do not want too many. I'm going to try 50. Hair length of 1. I'm going to use the object, and the object is this thing here that has an emission at the very end. So that guy, and we'll probably do this, and let's get the scale up so we start to see it somewhere. Let's hide these ones because I don't have very many. There they are there though. All right. Oh, and I want advanced on. Okay, a little bit of size random. Okay, and they look a little funny, so let's go to rotation. Let's go to normal. Are they standing up? Yeah, but I think my origin is in a funny place. So I'm going to zoom in on that. Let's check out the origin. Yeah, and as you can see, the origin is up near the top. And you can see them sprouting out as you push it down. So you can adjust that. And that's nice. Okay, now they're standing up. I really don't need too many of these, you know. So if I wanted to, I could just come back and have a look, and then they're just there glowing. But let's say I wanted them here for some reason. All right, so I'm going to select here, and for this particle system, I'm going to go ahead, and for density, I'll use grass glow. And now I'm going to go into weight paint and just paint them here and there. Let's just see if we can see them showing up there, and there they are. We adjusted some. Now if you want to interpolate them, if you want them to have children, or you want to see the children, you do that. And we've done that. We haven't really randomized this, so I'll just do that. And they're facing different directions, are they, to some extent? They're not all facing the same way. Yeah. Okay. So there's the particle system way of doing things. Now the other thing is doing just scattering things using Blender's internal scatter add-on. So you just enable it in the preferences, and let's say we want to scatter these strawberries that I made. All right. So you select the object, and then you select where you want to scatter them. Press the space bar and type scatter. And it says object, scatter objects. Click that. Before you do anything else, come over to the tools, and you can see some parameters for this. How dense you want them, the size and scale, randomness. And then what you do is you just drag your mouse, you left click and drag, and you see those blue dots, those blue squares? You do that, and then you can draw some more. You draw in here, press the space bar. Now you'll see these little tags, they won't render. All right. You cannot go back, however, and change this after you've clicked. You can, however, select them separately. And let's say you wanted them deeper into the ground. You can go GZ and just hold, you can pull them in. So I don't really need them in the ground like that. And I have scattered those. I believe you can come in here and go into edit mode and select one and delete. So if you have, say, these two are, you know, you don't want those there, you know, or intersecting with the building. You know, I don't really want that one there. You can delete some, or if they're too close or too packed. All right, so there's scatter for those guys. And let's scatter something else. Let's do a rock. All right, for this rock, all I would do is I would, let's see, does this have a texture on it? This does have a texture. Let's just focus on that. All right, it's not a great texture or anything. It's just, it looks like a piece of cement. The way I would do that is, let's, yeah, just use the rock generator, which again is an add-on. All right, adjust the parameters as you like. And there's my rock. I just left it default. I'm just going to bring that down. I'm going to scale that. Let's come over here. All right, so there it is. Let's say that's the rock I want. I can rotate Y 90. Maybe I want it to sit in the ground like that. That's fine where it is. Okay, now I want some textures on this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply all the modifiers. Control A, Control A, Control A, Control A, however many there are. So I get a nice dense mesh. U, Smart UV Project. I'm just going to do that, and then let's go back to medium point. I'm going to come into shading, and I'm going to focus on the rock, and click new. This is going to be rock 2, let's say. Find yourself a rock texture from textures.com or CG Textures, or is it the same place? This is diffuse, displacement, normal, roughness, specular. Let's try that. See what we get. Hey, that looks all right. You can scale the textures if you want. Let's try 2. If you think that looks better. At any rate, we have a rock, which may or may not suit the scene, but okay, let's use that. Let's scatter that thing. Okay, so select the rock, select the surface you want to scatter it on, spacebar, scatter, come to the tools, and decide how big you want. That looks okay. I'm going to have them right around here. Whoa, that might be quite a few. There they are, and I want a few more. So you're going to have to run it again. I've got that selected, spacebar, scatter objects here. All right. And now I have rocks. And then again, I can go in and say, you know, I don't like this one, so go into edit mode. And I can select that, and I can delete that rock. So that's basically how I'm building up my scene, using the particles, using scatter, using the texture paint.